Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, we have with us Dr. Peter Fader. Dr. Fader is the Professor of Marketing at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. Professor Fader's expertise centers around the analysis of behavioral data to understand and forecast customer shopping and purchasing activities. He works with firms from a wide range of industries such as consumer packaged goods, interactive media, financial services, and pharmaceuticals. Managerial applications focus on topics such as customer relationship management, lifetime value of the customer, and sales forecasting for new products. Much of his research highlights the consistent but often surprising behavioral patterns that exist across these industries and other seemingly different domains. Many of these cross-industry experiences have led to the development of the Wharton Customer Analytics Initiative, an innovative research center that serves as a matchmaker between leading-edge academic researchers and top companies that depend on granular customer-level data for key strategic decisions. Professor Fader believes that marketing should not be viewed as a soft discipline, and he frequently works with different companies and industry associations to improve managerial perspectives in this regard. His work has been published, and he serves on the editorial boards of a number of leading journals in marketing, statistics, and the management sciences, and he has won many awards for his teaching and research accomplishments. He is also the renowned author of Customer Centricity, Focus on the Customer for a Strategic Advantage. So, without further delay, welcome, Dr. Fader.
My pleasure to talk with you, Unique.
Awesome. So even though I gave a very lengthy introduction of you, I always like our guests to give our listeners an opportunity to share their journey with the listeners. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and how it is that you found yourself on this journey of marketing, customer centricity, and just a little bit about yourself so we can connect with you before we actually get it.
It's been an interesting journey and one that I would have never imagined. It's not like I ever woke up and said, I want to be a marketing professor. In fact, quite to the contrary, I'm a math geek. I just like predicting things, in particular granular things. It's kind of fun to predict which customer is going to buy what, when, and for how much, and how often are they going to come back. So as an undergraduate at MIT, I was enjoying predicting things, whether it was in the sports domain, music, lots of different areas. And there was one professor who said, you ought to do all that predicting stuff in marketing. And here I am 30-odd years later and having just a great time with it. It is such a natural domain for someone who likes math and numbers and predictions. And the field is just waking up to really understand and appreciate the need for these kinds of technical skills and, equally importantly, the strategic implications that arise from them.
Okay, wonderful. So in terms of customer service, how do you feel about customer service on a global level? What are your thoughts?
I have two minds about it. On one hand, I look at the levels of customer service and the focus on it today compared to a generation ago, and it's just so much better. It's just a better customer experience. Companies genuinely care more. As a consumer, it's just more fun and interesting to go shopping and to travel and to interact with people on the other side of the counter. On the other hand, I think that a lot of companies are going too far. I think a lot of companies are not going to get a good ROI on those investments in customer service because I think they're rolling out the red carpet a little bit too broadly, a little bit too eagerly, without being very careful to understand what impact these customer service activities are having on the value of their customers. They're taking kind of a one-size-fits-all, customer is always right approach. And I think, quite frankly, that's irresponsible. And companies really shouldn't be doing different kinds of customer service or customer experience activities without understanding in a precise manner the impact that it's having on the value of those customers who they're serving.
Very true. So I was looking through some of the stuff in your book, Customer Centricity, and I know you give a lot of emphasis on customer lifetime value. Could you share a little bit about customer lifetime value and why it's important for a business to understand what that means?
Happy to do so. So the concept isn't new. In fact, I suspect that every one of your listeners has those words, whether it's CLV or LTV, in their vocabulary. I'm sure it's part of kind of casual conversations that they'll have internally. People are aware that we should be looking at the future value of our customers. But there's a couple of problems with that. Number one, it tends to be kind of cheap talk. It's almost like we're checking a box instead of really, truly building our business in a formal, strategic manner around CLV. And secondly, the way that companies are doing the calculations, if they're doing it at all, tends to be pretty poor. For instance, they'll find proxies for CLV. They might look at historic profitability. They might look at net promoter scores. They might look at even credit scores, a FICO score, and just use that as a proxy for CLV. And I'm not saying that those are bad metrics, but they're not CLV. And if you're going to be building strategies around it, then you better be calculating it the right way. And my view is, once you calculate it the right way, once you validate it, once you really understand the underlying components of it, then that's going to drive so many strategic decisions, not only when it comes to customer service, but even when it comes to deciding which products to launch and which regions to go into and which competitors to worry about. It has far-reaching strategic implications. And that's my job. My two jobs is, number one, to get companies to really understand, appreciate, and calculate CLV the right way. And number two, to think about all those broad implications. And that's where this idea of customer centricity really comes in.
Yeah. And what I liked about in the book as well, the book spoke about there's a difference between being customer friendly versus customer centricity. And that I would love you to expound more about so our listeners can understand the difference.
Unique, you hit the nail on the head. And, part of it is my own fault, because when I came up with the title for the book, I should have come up with something more unique, because customer centricity just makes it sound like, let's just be nice to the customer, the faceless, nameless entity who happens to buy our products or services. That's the customer friendliness part. And I look at all these great stories of world-class customer service, the tired old story about Nordstrom giving a customer money back for tires they didn't buy there, or just lots of other companies that really put customer service as job one. And I think, like I said earlier, that's often a mistake. You have to understand which customers you're being friendly with. You have to understand what impact that's going to have on them and what other kinds of customers that's going to attract. As a specific example, I look at a lot of companies that are hiring an army of people to monitor Twitter. And every time they see someone tweet about the company, and if they're having some problem, we'll get the SWAT team out there to kind of fix whatever the problem is for the customer. And it sounds so nice. But in many, many cases, it's a complete waste of money. And so what we need to do is when someone's tweeting about us, for better or worse, we need to understand the value of that customer and use that kind of as a way of doing triage. Let's make sure that the really valuable customers, if they're having a problem, we're going to handle them first. And the lower value customers, well, I'm not saying we should ignore them. I'm certainly not saying we should chase them away. But if they have to wait, even if they have to suffer a little bit, that's okay, because we want to be on call for those really valuable customers. So it's essential for companies to really sort out just this generic one-size-fits-all, will be nice to everyone kind of customer service versus service activities that are closely tied to the value that they're going to create.
So basically, you're saying then that they need to choose the customers that will yield them that greatest value. And that kind of goes back into segmenting their customer base, correct?
It does indeed. It is all about segmentation, but it's not about the kind of segmentation that perhaps you and I learned about in our Marketing 101 courses. In most cases, companies are segmenting their customers on the basis of observable variables, things like demographics or where they live or media habits and things like that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that's ineffective. The best way to segment is on the basis of, well, going to sound like a broken record, customer lifetime value. So let's pull out our magic wand. Let's figure out the forward-looking value of each of our customers and then break them up into groups, let's say into deciles, our top 10%, or next 20%, and all the way down to the bottom 10%. And then let's understand how these customers are different from each other. So let's layer on the demographics and the media habits after we've done the segmentation as a way to profile the different value tiers as opposed to a way to create the segments in the first place. And once we see that, once we see these vast differences across our customers, that's going to guide a lot of the activities that we're going to do, customer service being really high on that list.
Wow, that's really, really powerful. So these types of customers, we did an interview a couple of weeks back with a lady by the name of Lee Carraher, and she spoke a lot about the millennials, and they're the ones that are the bulk of the customer base. I don't remember the statistics that she gave, but they were really astounding. How can companies adjust with customers who are expecting instant gratification? Because, they want things now. They're not like the baby boomers or, Generation X that be able to wait. How do you adjust to that?
Sure thing. So I want to answer that question in two parts. I like the way you said it towards the end of the question, just talking about the fact that, yes, there are some customers who are more needy and less patient than others. But first, let me focus on the first part. I do not like the whole millennial thing. I don't like that kind of stereotyping. I think it's wrong. I think it's ineffective. I think to paint everyone who's born between a certain set of years with the same brush is a terrible, terrible mistake, and companies need to stop doing it. Goes back to the point I made earlier. You don't want to segment people on the basis of when they were born. You want to segment them on the basis of what they're going to be worth in the future. And if you were to look at that group of millennials, I forget even how we define it, those folks between 19 and 34 years old, there's going to be tremendous heterogeneity within that group. There's going to be some of them who absolutely follow that stereotype. There's going to be many others who much more closely resemble, baby boomers like myself and other folks who aren't quite so, lazy and spoiled. So first, let's just get rid of that kind of stereotyping. It's just a bad thing to do, and it's bad for business. But to your point, there are some customers out who are going to be needier. There are some customers out there who are never going to be happy. There are some customers out there that when you give them one thing, they're going to want more and more and more. That's where customer lifetime value comes in, because CLV is going to help us understand the value of these customers and the costs of delivering those value and acquiring and maintaining customers like that. And if we find customers who are very, very needy, we might think twice about them. And we might say, you know what? Yeah, we got this customer, and that's fine, and they bought some stuff from us, but it's just not worth it for us. It's too much effort, and we can't ever make them happy. Why don't we get real smart and try to understand what makes our good, more desirable customers different from those less valuable ones? And let's acquire more customers who have their kinds of characteristics. So I'd rather not just immediately say, let's go after certain big, broad demographic groups and avoid others. But let's get a little bit more fine-grained about that. And again, let's do it with kind of harder behavioral, even financial data behind those decisions.
Okay, so you're more strategic and completely in line with the type of client that you're looking for. So you're not looking to please everyone, but you're looking to please the ones, again, going back to lifetime value, the ones that will yield you the greater results, especially in the long term.
And that's exactly why the subtitle of my book is Focus on the Right Customers for Strategic Advantage. It's not be every customer's best friend. It's let's figure out who those right customers are, which means the ones who have high CLV, and let's find ways that we can build our business around them. But if we can identify who those customers are, and if we can find ways to bring certain kinds of products and services to them to enhance their value, and build such a great relationship with them as a trusted advisor that we can extract some of that value from them and then clone them to find others like them, that we can just do so much better than just focusing on some kind of generic customer service program or version 2.0 of the product. So focus on the right customers for strategic advantage. And that's a pretty radical thing to say. There's a lot of people out there, especially in the customer service, customer experience world, who take great offense with what I'm saying, because I'm basically saying you got to pick and choose. Some are going to be more valuable than others, and you really need to invest to figure that out. And if you don't, you're going to be wasting a lot of money on some low-value customers.
That's true. It might be things that we don't want to hear, but it is the truth.
Indeed it is. And, let me go one step further with it, since you agree with me. There's a lot of people out there, this is maybe a terrible thing for me to say, who are kind of afraid of lifetime value. They think it's kind of scary and mathy. They're not sure what they would do with it. It's kind of this great unknown. So they'd rather kind of put their blinders on about that, and let's just throw ourselves into customer service and customer experience and customer journey and all this stuff that you know a lot more about than I do. And if we can just be good at all of that, then it kind of absolves us of the need to really do the CLV thing. I think that's a mistake. I think that there's a beautiful interplay between the two, but you can't do the customer service, customer experience, customer journey thing very, very well unless you're cognizant of and comfortable with CLV.
Yeah, that is true. In your experience as a professor, I'm sure from time to time dealing with other companies, you'll have to deal with the leaders. How do you get the leaders to really understand that customer service and customer experience is just not a nice to have, as you were saying, a make them feel good kind of thing, but that it really is directly connected to your bottom line. And if you don't change the way that you're operating, you will get left behind?
That's a great question, and that's exactly why I wrote my book, because I've been developing these CLV models and other models like them for years and years and years, and going to companies and saying, hey, here's this great predictive model, go use it. And the companies would say, oh, we have all these geeks and nerds over in analytics. You can talk to them, but we have a business to run here. I'm the CMO. I'm too busy for that kind of nonsense. And I just found that very frustrating, not only because these models are really good, but because a lot of companies are truly missing the mark, as I said a moment ago, because they're not being aware of the value of different kinds of customers. So I wrote the Customer Centricity book as a call to action, as a wake-up call to get C-level people to really appreciate the strategic importance, the competitive imperative of really understanding lifetime value and all of the different ways that it can be leveraged. So I've been trying hard to change the conversation at the C-level. There's a number of companies that have been listening, and a number of companies are coming to it on their own. I'm not going to give myself too much credit, but a number of other companies who say, that's just not what we do. That's just not what we're all about. We're just going to stick with the product and the service and the faceless, nameless customer. And again, it's this kind of denial of this future that keeps them on that path. And for many of these companies, it's not a good path to be on.
That is so true. It's one of the challenges that I face every day in my own business as well. And that's one of the reasons why I asked the question, because customer experience is driven from leadership. Like a lot of times I go into workshops and I say to the leaders that you have to think of your business like your family. So your kids watch you every day and they see the things you do. And yes, you're going to put rules and regulations in place. But if you're telling them not to do something, but they're seeing you do it every day, you're not exactly setting a very good example.
That's so true. And that's why I've really been trying to get to the C-level with it. There's been a lot of people, especially the folks in analytics and many in marketing, who kind of hear my message about CLV and this and that, and they try to bubble it up to the top of the organization. But unless you get not just C-level, passive approval, but absolute passionate buy-in, these kinds of CLV or customer-centric initiatives aren't going to succeed. I'm aiming for the top a lot more than I ever imagined. Again, I'm just a number cruncher, but I'm a number cruncher on a mission these days. And I'm really trying to get companies to wake up and smell the CLV, and it just has to start at the high level. And like I said, it's been, even in the couple of years since that book came out, it's been wonderful to see some of the companies, even companies that I was critical about in the book, such as Starbucks, doing almost a complete 180 and saying, we get it now, and we got to focus on the CLV, and not all our customers are the same, and we have to figure out the ways to appeal to those high-value customers. And so it's been very gratifying to watch the changes taking place, but at the same time, for every company that's been moving what I'd call in the right direction, there's 10 others who are still stuck in their old ways.
Yeah. But I guess if you have more than one person shouting the same message, sometimes it's not necessarily the message that changes the impression, but it's who delivers the message that changes the impression.
And that's why I'm so glad to have this conversation with you, Unique, and so many others. There's only so much I can say. There's only so many channels that I have. There's a lot of people who are going to dismiss me, both because I'm an academic and because I'm a quant guy. But if I can just get that message out there, said in different words by different people coming at it from different angles, it's going to have a lot more credibility than me just shouting a little bit louder.
True. The book mentions customer relationship management and the key components for a company to be successful at that. Can you explain to me what you meant when you mentioned it in the book versus what's actually happening in organizations in terms of how they embrace customer relationship management?
You are hitting all the key points, and it's wonderful for me to talk about that. I look back at what was going on with CRM 20, 25 years ago. Just as companies were just starting to wake up, just when the internet was starting to happen, and we just had the early ability to tag and track individual customers. And all these companies went out and built these elaborate CRM systems, and they pretty much all failed. And if you ask anyone who was in business, at the turn of the century, ask them for their visceral reaction to CRM, they're going to use words like disappointment, frustration, failure, waste of money. And that's because CRM, it was out there too early. We were developing all these technical abilities to collect all this data together, but we didn't know what to do with it. Now, today, both because of the stagnation of product centricity, because of globalization, because of the millennials, because of all these different reasons, customer centricity is just not only more understood than ever before, but much more necessary. So now it's finally time for the CRM revolution. It's almost a shame that it happened 20, 25 years ago. It should be happening now. And it's important to go to companies and say, listen, if you really want to do the customer-centric thing, if you really want to figure out who the right customers are and what are the right touch points to use for them and how to acquire more like them, it begins with CRM. So we have to kind of forgive ourselves for our past mistakes, for getting the cart out in front of the horse and saying, okay, now we know what to do with it. And now our computational capabilities are better, our analytical capabilities are better, our ability to deliverize customized products and services are far better. So now it's time to play the CRM game like never before. And I want companies to kind of appreciate that and not feel burned by it once before, and to understand, with a little bit of guidance, that they can really have it pay off this time.
Mm-hmm. So let's put it into some practical terms. Let's say we're a bank and we have maybe 1,000 employees and we have a customer base of, let's say, 600,000 persons. How can we use customer relationship management to really yield on that, lifetime value that we've been speaking about?
Well, for one thing, we need to have a holistic view of each and every customer. So there's actually one of the books that I found very influential when I was starting to kind of weave together my own book. Was a book, looking over my bookshelf right now to get the exact title, but it's called something like Angel Customers and Demon Customers. And in that book, the opening example is of someone who's a very active, loyal member of a retail bank, and they apply for a mortgage, and all of a sudden they're treated like a total stranger, because the mortgage department has no idea who they are. They don't care. It's a different business unit, and they're just not, tied in and integrated with the folks who are doing just the regular day-to-day retail banking. And it's a story that, even though that book is close to 20 years old, it still resonates at a lot of places. A truly customer-centric enterprise would recognize the value of their customers not just through any one of the activities that the customer does, but in a truly holistic 360-degree manner. And I think that goes without saying, although it's important to say because there's still so many companies that don't get it. I have to say, banking has been one of the more impressive sectors to kind of wake up and get this message and really embrace CRM and some of these customer-centric principles. The point is this, that if we find those high-value customers, those customers who have been doing a lot of stuff with us, they've been with us for a long time, they tend to be relatively easy to serve, that when they come to us and start asking questions about whether it's a mortgage or a home equity line or a credit card or whatever else, you know what? By the time they walk into the branch, we're going to have the application filled out and ready to go for them. That we're going to bend over backwards in a way for those customers that we're, not necessarily going to do, at least not make it a priority, for the so-so customers. So you can start to see how the CRM, the CLV, the customer service, and the customer experience all start to fit together in just a natural manner. And that people across the entire bank are going to understand the CLV of each and every customer, not only the customer service people, but even the folks who are developing new products. Instead of evaluating those new products on the basis of how many new accounts can we open or how many of these things can we ship, it's going to be, what impact is it going to have on the value of our customers? Is it going to help us attract valuable new customers? Because after all, if we're only going to attract people who are going to get this new service and that's it, it's not worth it. So what's it doing in terms of the value of the new customers we acquire and the changes to the value of the customers, existing customers who adopt that service? So you got to really see this CLV and this customer-centric thing really, really broadly across the enterprise. I want every employee to be thinking about the value of the customers and the customer base as a whole, not just the marketing people.
Right. And I guess that's why it's so important for the leadership to understand what the customer lifetime value is and the importance of attracting the right customer and being able to translate that message to their team every day, reinforcing the message that it becomes a part of their DNA.
Along those lines, one of the things that I've been making a real big deal of just in these last couple of months has been the idea of customer-based corporate valuation. Because if you think about it, if you're a company where the vast majority of your revenues, all of your revenues, are showing up through customers, Well, then if you can figure out the CLV of every one of your customers, present ones and even the ones that you're likely to acquire in the future, and you add all that stuff up, well, that's the value of the firm. So I've been doing exactly that task with real companies, looking at the current and future customers, projecting their future value and how many of them there will be, adding that up and then comparing that to Wall Street's market valuation of the company. And the main reason I'm doing this isn't because I'm trying to start a hedge fund or anything like that, but because I want the CFO to look at this and say, whoa, this is really interesting. This is actually more accurate, more timely, more actionable than the traditional top-down ways of doing valuation. You know what? That customer lifetime value thing is good for me too. Maybe those marketing people have a point. So I'm trying to win over the CFO as well as the CMO and the CEO and everybody across the board. I want to go to every executive and say, here's what CLV can do for you. And in the end, I want it to be this gold standard metric that everybody in the organization can appreciate. So we won't have these battles over different kinds of metrics.
True.
And again, it's very, very early in that revolution, but there are some companies out there that have been doing it quite well. And again, banks are an interesting example where different retail banks are approaching it in different kinds of ways. Some of them aren't going there at all. But it's going to be interesting to see how that sector and many other sectors change. Even over the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot of changes occurring.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to be on that journey for sure. That's just amazing. Wow. So just to reiterate some of the things that you had mentioned, I found the book on Amazon, and just to share with the listeners, so if they want to look it up, they can. The book is Angel Customers and Demon Customers. Discover which is and turbocharge your stock. And the authors are Larry Selden and Jeffrey Colvin. That's Selden and Colvin. So you can check that out because Dr. Fader said it was one of the books that helped him to write his book on customer centricity, which I would also recommend that you go out and get. And they're both available on Amazon. So
thanks for the shout out.
You're welcome. We like to, of course, find out from our guests what are some of the things that motivates them, because apart from being a podcast about customer experience, I strongly believe that your personality and, you know, your mindset and all of that is part of the service that you deliver. Clearly, you know, that's why you've been so successful in your own career. So how do you stay motivated as a professor in, you know, in the realm of the life that you're living currently? How do you stay motivated despite all of what's going on?
I appreciate the question. I hope you could tell just from even the tone of my voice. I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. And I've been so fortunate that every bit of my professional career has been both enjoyable and really well synced up. You know, I love the research that I do because I'm building all these predictive models that will then go out there and have very, very big impact in actual practice. So I know that I'm not just doing the ivory tower exercises, you know, in a small way, I'm changing the world. But I love what I teach as well. You know, for many professors, it's, oh, I got to go teach now. Darn, I got to stop doing the research and I got to go make up stuff for the undergrads or the MBAs. I'm teaching this kind of stuff. I teach 2 courses. One is on the statistical methods and the other one is on all these principles of customer centricity. So I truly love what I teach. I've been here for 30 years. I've never taken a sabbatical because I just love being in the classroom so much. And as I hinted at a moment ago, I love my interactions with companies. I turn to companies both for interesting ideas for me to work on, as well as for validation about the research and teaching activities that I'm doing. So all of these things fit together. It flows so seamlessly from the research and the teaching and outside activities that it's every day. I'm just eager to get to work. And I've been so fortunate, as you mentioned in my introduction at the outset, I'm working across every sector imaginable. You know, one day I'm working in the music industry. Next day I'm working with Major League Baseball with a leading pharmaceutical firm. And it's just so much fun to see all these different experiences, to see how different industries are embracing or ignoring some of these ideas, to take some of the best practices from some and go to seemingly unrelated businesses and say, wait a minute, hey, you can learn a lot from that sector over there. And so being the one to kind of build the bridges and tell the stories and motivate some of those learnings, I've been so fortunate to have this opportunity. And I can't wait for the next 20 plus years of doing so because it's just getting better and better all the time.
Awesome. Wow. That is amazing. So what is the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely cannot live without in your business or in your personal life?
Well, let's focus on the personal life one, and that's Twitter. Twitter is just the most amazing thing. And it breaks my heart so much because it's such an incredible and valuable service And you look at how they're just struggling. And it's a shame because I think, to me, Twitter is far more valuable than Facebook or LinkedIn or anything else. I mean, those are all fine services too, but Twitter really on every level, on a personal level, I can't watch a baseball game or a presidential debate or anything else without seeing who's tweeting what. And professionally, to be able to, every time I write a new paper or read a new paper or see an article out there that companies are saying good things or bad things, be able to kind of use that to spread the gospel very broadly. So it's been so great to be able to kind of broadcast my views on things and to see others. So that's been a game changer for me.
Okay. So Twitter is your personal and professional app. Do you have one that just fits into your professional realm?
There'd be a lot of just kind of specific blogs and websites that I kind of keep tabs on for the kind of quant marketing stuff that I do. If anyone's interested, send me an email and I can send you a long list of them. But there's nothing that I can't do without for a day or so. But the idea of a day or so without Twitter, I don't want to even think about that. So here's the other, in terms of personal life, this is ridiculous, but since you asked, just to show people the depth of my obsession with numbers and all that, I own and kind of update the domain name coolnumbers.com. Turns out that I have the world's greatest collection of dollar bills with interesting serial numbers. And so if people have too much time on their hands, they can go to coolnumbers.com and put in any 8-digit number, and it will tell you how cool it is on a 0 to 100 scale. It's utterly pointless. It has no redeeming social value. It's completely stupid. But it's just a nice outlet for someone who likes to crunch numbers. And apparently there's a lot of other people like me out there. I just thank my lucky stars, going back to the professor at MIT who kind of steered me in the direction of marketing. So I can still kind of let my true geek hang out on occasion. But for the most part, I can channel it in a more productive manner.
Awesome. Okay. I know you mentioned the book that we just spoke about in terms of that had a good influence on you, Angel Customers and Demon Customers. Are there any books that have had a great impact on you throughout your career, maybe when you were younger, when you were doing your undergraduate degrees, books that maybe you recommend to your students to help them develop as well?
I have a whole bunch of them. I have a whole giant shelf of them sitting behind me. Some of the truly the most influential books, the ones that really made me wake up and say, whoa, I could do this for a living. Unfortunately, the 2 or 3 that I have in mind are truly the most influential. They're so long out of print that it's almost silly for me to say them. But again, if anyone's interested, I could send links to them. Well, I'll mention one of them. You can still find used copies of it on Amazon, but they're really expensive because I'm always playing it up and it's out of print. But it's a book called Consumer Behavior Models for Non-Statisticians by a gentleman named Jerome Green. And he was a media researcher, not even an academic. And just the patterns that he observed and the, technical but not overly technical ways that he kind of lays them out was very influential for me and continues to be for some of my students. And here's one other more contemporary book that I really would say is a must read. It's a book called How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp, who's a professor down at the University of South Australia. This is one I highly recommend to everybody because its principles and the answer to that question, how do brands grow, are so radical that a lot of people would read it and say, well, that's nonsense. That can't be true. This is not the way we do marketing. But most of it is very well supported by the kinds of models that I and other people build. And a completely non-technical book, no math whatsoever. It's just, kind of stories and principles. And I really do recommend people to read it and try to be kind of open to the message. It's a really nice, completely non-technical way to get a sense of both the kinds of issues that I work on and their important implications for managers. Now, there are, as I said, I believe with 90% of what's in there, the other 10% I violently disagree with. And in fact, a lot of the points in my customer centricity book would seem to almost be at odds with this other one, How Brands Grow. But I think reading both of those books and trying to see the overlap as well as some of the differences, I think is a really instructive exercise. And I have to say, I've worked with a lot of companies where we would do kind of an off-site book club meeting. Let's read these two and understand each of them by themselves and the kind of overlaps and even conflicts to really understand what the world of customer behavior and therefore marketing action is really all about.
Wow, very cool. So you mentioned Consumer Behavior Models for Non-Statisticians, The River of Time.
That's right.
And How Brands Grow, What Marketers Don't Know by Byron Sharp, correct?
Yes, again, and there's a new version of the latter book by Sharp just came out a couple of months ago. I would say that one is a must read because most marketing books you read, either it's just taking stuff you already know and just kind of at best putting a slightly different spin on it, giving you some new stories to tell about principles that you already know inside out. You read that How Brands Grow book and it's shocking because everything in there is, whoa, not only did I never think about that, I don't believe that. And that's why it really is important to read it objectively and to try to let go of some of the baggage, some of the stereotypes you have about how marketing works, and just have a good conversation about kind of where you draw the line, what actions you will or won't take as a result.
Right. Okay. What's the one thing that's going on in your life right now that you are extremely excited about, that you're working on either to develop yourself or your people?
Oh, that's so easy. And I'm so glad you gave me the opportunity to talk about it. Zodiac. That's my new startup. So I've taken a lot of these CLV models. And as I said earlier, for years and years and years, I've been developing the models, and here's some spreadsheets, and here's our code and videos and technical notes and cases. And for years and years and years, I'm this big believer in, if you teach a man to fish, he can eat for a lifetime. So I've been saying, here it is. Here's the fishing lessons. Here's the way to go out there and do CLV for yourself. And some companies have taken the bait and others haven't. A lot of them have come back to me and said, I know these models are good, but can you just do it for me? And so I have this new startup, this company called Zodiac, URL is zodiacmetrics.com, where it's beautiful. It's an online platform that bolts right onto a company's transaction log system, sucks out their transaction log data, calculates all the CLVs in real time, and then injects them right back into their CRM system. So I don't want to tell companies what to do. I don't want to tell them what experiment to run or which customers to go after. I just want to give them the right ingredients for them to be able to do that, so that then they could read my book and figure out, how to do all the strategic stuff. I want to create that magic wand, that engine that's going to give companies one less excuse to not do the CLV thing. And so it's been so exciting, like I said earlier, to take my teaching, to take my research, and take some of my outside activities just at a much higher level, to do this stuff at true commercial scale. And in many cases, working with companies on all of the different kinds of activities that we've mentioned. So let's evaluate the impact of customer service. Let's evaluate, social media monitoring. Let's evaluate new product launches and different kinds of promotional campaigns. And let's use that gold standard metric in a way that you can get the numbers easily and you can understand them and you can see what they all mean. So I'm spending a whole lot of time on that in addition to the day job. And it's been so great to see the kinds of companies that have stepped forward, the things that I have learned about the applications of CLV and how to run a business. It's like I'm a kid all over again and enjoying every step of the way.
Wow. I just went on the website. It looks really powerful, Dr. Fader. I would definitely encourage all of our listeners, if you have a business and you definitely want to identify what your CLV is, this is a wonderful tool to engage with.
Well, thanks again for mentioning that. And there's just now a number of companies that are talking about CLV, a number of vendors, analytics firms or CRM firms that say, we do CLV in addition to 1,000 other things. I want to be the specialist. I want to do the CLV thing super well and then partner with those other firms so they can use kind of our branded ingredient as part of the broader array of things that they offer to their customers. And again, it's been so gratifying to work directly with retailers and telcos and gaming companies and pharmaceutical firms and many others, to partner with other analytics and consulting firms, even to partner with private equity firms, going back to this idea of customer-based corporate valuation. They appreciate it as much as anyone else. So again, for me, it's been just fun to see all these different doors opening, and we're just getting going on. It is still a young startup. We're hiring like crazy, but it's been just really, really interesting to be in the trenches, trying to understand how to market myself while I'm still doing all my research and teaching and everything else. And fortunately, it does fit well together because otherwise there just aren't enough hours in the day.
Yeah, it's really an awesome tool. I'm going to explore it some more, and I'll definitely promote it on my end for companies that I think would benefit from something like that. Sometimes, as I said, it's not necessarily the message that changed, but it's, how it's delivered or who it's delivered from, and they see it in a different light in order to understand the real importance of it.
That's right. And then it comes back to me and to the firm, which is when companies come back and say, we like that CLV thing, and we want to use it for XYZ, some other purpose that I never thought about before. The light bulb goes on over my head. It's like, yeah, that's a great idea. So I'm actually already thinking about book number 2. Like my follow-up to the customer centricity book is going to be something more along the lines of the CLV playbook. Now that you can get the CLVs easily, whether it's working with a firm like mine or doing it on your own, I don't really care. But once you have those CLVs, here's 50 fun things to do with them. And I think the more that we can put out of this broad array of use cases, some of them strategic, some of them tactical, again, across different functional areas, the more that companies are going to be willing to explore it and invest in it and think of 50 other things to do with it. We're just beginning that whole direction. And it's just nice to have a vehicle that just makes it a little bit easier for companies to start to pursue it.
Very cool. Very cool. So for those of you that didn't hear the website at the beginning in terms of the CLV tool that Dr. Fader is working alongside his team with, it's zodiacmetrics.com. That's ZODIACMETRICS.com. If you have a business or you know someone who has a business would benefit from this, I strongly encourage you to head on over to that website and request an invite.
That's tremendous. Like I said, I hope the thing can make money. That would be very nice of all these employees who depend on it. But to me personally, it's equally important to be able to, A, have an even bigger podium and louder megaphone to shout what I do and to show that it's not just ivory tower, and B, to learn about the applications, to learn about ways that we can and need to tweak the methods. And it just feeds back to the research that I do. It flows into the classroom. It's all entirely synergistic. And who knows, like any startup, there's always a lot of hurdles and a lot of uncertainties. But just knowing that I've had this opportunity to kind of get out of the purely academic mode and just at least pretend I'm in the real world has been just one of the most exciting things that I've been able to experience in what's been a very exciting 30-year career here at Wharton.
Right. All right. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you online? I know you mentioned you absolutely cannot live without Twitter. So could you share with us your Twitter handle? My Twitter handle is FaderP, F like Frank, A-D like David, E-R, P like Peter, FaderP. I love to use LinkedIn as well. I'm always on there all the time, both looking for and helping people facilitate connections. My website is petefader.com. That just takes you right to my faculty page. Then, as you said, there's also zodiacmetrics.com. Through those different kinds of channels, I really do seek every possible way of creating, of enabling, of facilitating these conversations about customer lifetime value, customer centricity, and just a zillion other technical and strategic topics that arise from them. So I do hope, again, I appreciate your reaching out to me and giving me the opportunity to talk about it. And I welcome everybody to make the conversation happen and keep it going. Awesome. So before we wrap up with our guest, we normally ask the guest what's one quote or saying that they kind of go by maybe when they buck up on a challenge or a stumbling block that kind of helps them to refocus or recenter on the journey that they're taking in their life. Do you have one of those?
Do I have an inspirational quote? It's funny because I very often will I love the idea of finding relevant quotes, and I'll often put them in my academic papers as kind of headings over some of the sections as a way to take some of the technical stuff that I do and make it seem kind of thought-provoking. But one that would guide my life as a whole, it's really funny. For a guy who always can go on and on about pretty much any question you ask, stumped me on that one, you think. But I do need one, so I'm going to get going on that right away.
All right. Well, regardless, the information, the knowledge, the experience, the examples, all the things that you shared with us, I think stumps any quote that you could come up with. So
thanks for letting me off the hook.
For that, we are extremely grateful. I'm sure when this episode is released, all of our listeners out there are going to be contacting you and they're going to be reaching out to you. So we really appreciate you taking the time to share with us today. I'm going to encourage our listeners that are listening to try to engage with your tool that you're working on, the Zodiac Metrics, and also purchase your book. It's an awesome book. You don't only need to purchase it if you are a business owner, but you can purchase it if you're just an employee in an organization. It has great tools, great tips in there, and I'm a firm believer that at the end of the day, we're all customers in anything that we do. So I would encourage our listeners to definitely go out there and get that book. And Dr. Fader shared with us his social media handles. You can reach out to him on Twitter. You can get him on his website, and you can also reach him on LinkedIn. So be sure to reach out to him. And again, thank you, Dr. Fader. I really enjoyed this interview.
I did too, Yannick. I do a lot of these things, but you asked some excellent questions, and that just makes me feel real good. I hope my answers were nearly as good as your questions were.
Oh, they were. They were. I'm just here to facilitate and make you shine. That's my role.
Well, keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. So again, thank you for taking time to be with us on Navigating the Customer Experience. And just to remind our guests, you can head on over to Twitter as usual and follow us there to see what we're up to. It's Navigating CX. And if you want to connect with us even more, you can join our closed Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. So until next time, thank you for joining us on Navigating the Customer Experience. I'm your host, Yannick Grant. We really appreciate your support of this podcast. If you want to grow your business even more or improve your leadership skills, or train your team members in the art of customer service with skills such as empowerment, speed, identifying and understanding customer needs, handling your customer complaints, and also learning more about your customer lifetime value through our customer retention value calculator, please visit our website at yannickgrant.com or give us a call at 305-848-0815 or send us an email at yannick@navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. We also provide our clients with extensive research data about what really happens in their business and how their customers actually feel through our mystery shopping and customer satisfaction surveys. We will visit the branches, we test through telephone calls and email correspondence, and we provide you with a full report filled with graphs and data that can be used as strategies to improve your customer experience and Net Promoter Score. We are here to help you and be your partner for change. Please head on over to Facebook and come join in on our Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community, where all our past guests and subscribers hang out and share insightful information on customer experience, personal development, business growth, customer journey mapping, technology, and so much more. Remember to tune in weekly through your podcast app if you are an Apple user, Stitcher Radio, or SoundCloud for Android users, and you can also listen directly from our website, yannickgrant.com. Please feel free to share with your friends and family.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.